Lovely. Now, moving on from what Judy said, I'm going to take one of those three things that Judy was talking about, the breathing, muscles, thoughts, and I'm going to talk about the breathing tonight, which some of you have heard me speak about before, but it's one of those things that I think you need to hear over and over and over to get to the point where when you're in the spotlight, there's a bit of stage fright going on, it can just kick in. You know, you just want it to kick in and you want to have really strong faith in the technique and the system and truly believe that it's working for you. So that takes a little bit of work to get to that point. Now, one of the other reasons I want to talk about breathing in particular is that as a speech pathologist, going through university, learning all about stuttering, doing lots of clinics with Annette at the Mater in the 80s and early 90s, and from a speech pathology point of view, we were taught all about breathing from a control point of view, that you're needing to control your speech, you're needing to control your muscles, you're needing to control your phrasing, you're needing to use the pause and take those pauses between while, you know, to breathe in properly. So we learned all about that. In recent years, I've sort of been doing a deep dive into breathing techniques and learning a lot more about the actual physiological impact of breathing techniques on your body, on your brain, on your muscles. So it does affect all of those things. And so you really need that underlying platform that you then use to speak on to be successful with fluency and with a lot of other things too. It also applies to people with voice disorders as well. You need that underlying platform to be correct before anything else is going to work for you. And that's certainly what I see. So as I said, I've been doing quite a deep dive into breathing, and I'm just going to zip through some of the benefits that traditionally a speech pathologist wasn't taught or didn't think about, but that have a huge impact on your ability to be fluent on the spot, on cue, when you're under pressure. So, first of all, sorry, I had a bit of a throat tonight. First of all, there's two elements of breathing that I teach. Diaphragmatic breathing, which a lot of you will be familiar with, and then what has been, not what I've coined, but what has been coined Navy SEAL breathing. So when you're doing Navy SEAL breathing, by default, you're always doing diaphragmatic breathing at the same time. So diaphragmatic breathing means that you're not using this upper chest to do clavicular breathing. So you're not using these muscles to breathe. You're doing belly breathing. You're using your belly to breathe. We want to free these muscles up for speech. We don't want these muscles fatigued. We don't want fatigue running up through our neck. We want these muscles freed up for speech. So we're belly breathing. So that was always the tenet behind smooth speech, if you like, is that that's what we were aiming to do. But if you pair that up with Navy SEAL breathing and your diaphragmatic breathing, and the third thing is that when you breathe in through your nose. That's becoming increasingly acknowledged as being really important. So when you are on the spot and you're going to take that breath in that pause, maybe leave the room, as Judy was suggesting, breathing in through your nose, not your mouth, okay? And there's reasons for that as well, okay? So first of all, let me just zip through some of the reasons for breathing in through your nose. We'll start there. Obviously, you get air filtration and humidification of the air, which is just better for you, okay? So you're going to actually filter, you're going to warm, you're going to humidify the air before it gets down into your lungs. Always a good thing. The other thing is that nasal breathing produces nitric oxide. So nitric oxide is a molecule that improves oxygen delivery throughout your body by dilating your blood vessels. So every time you breathe in through your nose, you're getting a hit of nitric oxide, not only down into your lungs, but you actually have sensors inside the top of your nose here that will take the nitric oxide in and the oxygen in together directly into your system. So when you dilate those blood vessels, you get better circulation, you get better oxygen distribution throughout your body. from a speech point of view, that's also important, because by the time you get right to some of your tiny, tiny speech muscles, you've got 96 muscles involved in talking, by the way, if you didn't know, fun fact. By the time you get to the teeny weeny little muscles, it's actually little tiny capillaries delivering the oxygen to those muscles. So by the time your oxygen goes through all your big muscles and through all your big arteries, when you get to those tiny capillaries, you still want oxygen left in them. And your nitric oxide will assist you to do that. And there's some good science behind that as well. So you're breathing in through your nose. You get better lung volume utilization by breathing in your nose, because you have to pause, and we talk about the pause, and you have to actually focus on a decent breath. So you get better lung. And then dentists will tell you that it's better for oral health. That's just a little aside. That's probably really not going to affect us. But the other thing breathing in through your nose does is that when you breathe in through your nose, your tongue elevates to the roof of your mouth and it drops your larynx. Okay, so your larynx is your voice box in your throat. So each time you breathe in through your nose, you're dropping your larynx, which means you're relaxing your larynx. And, you know, we talk about blocking and how often stage fright is about a block. For a lot of people, it's about blocking. You actually want to drop that larynx in your throat in that moment in time. So when you find yourself in a difficult spot, a decent breath down to your diaphragm, but through your nose will drop your larynx. Okay, and that will give you some relaxation in your throat, so that you're less likely to block by doing that. So that's breathing in through your nose. Using your belly or your diaphragm for breathing, as I've said, is important, because it takes all these muscles that are up around your strap muscles in your throat, takes them out of the equation. They're not breathing for you. You're actually giving them a break, because you breathe, you know, over 20,000 times a day. So if you can take those muscles out of the equation, you're doing yourself a favour. So you're going to be belly breathing. You'll get better oxygen exchange, and that's proven with scientific studies. And we want more oxygen to those muscles, because remember Judy talked about muscles. We need oxygen to our muscles for our muscles to be coordinated and effective. So it will help that. Diaphragmatic breathing also activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So your parasympathetic nervous system is where you is your rest and digest system. Okay, so it takes you out of the fight and flight and puts you into the rest and digest system in your body. It lowers your heart rate, your blood pressure, and it reduces your body's stress response. Okay, it reduces muscle tension. We've talked about muscles a lot, because you're not using these muscles, so these muscles don't get tense, because that's what we tend to do. If we can feel a stutter coming on, we want to push. We want to push and use all these muscles here to push. And you're just in a vicious cycle then. You're making the situation worse. So we want to relax all of these muscles, but we want more oxygen to all the other muscles to relax them as well. It also improves your core stability. So it engages your core through your abdominal. Can't see. I'm pointing down here. Through your core and your abdominal area. So it actually engages that. So that gives you better endurance and posture. So you're less likely to fatigue. Okay. Again, much better for speech production. And it also enhances your voice projection without you having to force anything. So people will actually hear you when you do speak. And, you know, to hold, because you're going to be speaking more slowly probably than the other people in the room, because it's a proven fact that everyone will speak at the speed of the fastest speaker in the room. That's actually been proven in studies. So you want to hold your space in that room. So you're going to want to have some voice projection to go with your speech, and that will help you do that. All right. Now, the Navy SEAL breathing is where you're breathing in for 4 seconds, holding for about 4 seconds, breathing out for 8 seconds, holding again for 4 seconds, in for 4. So we've done a little bit of that in previous sessions, and I gave David a nifty little handout to send around to everyone. So if you haven't got it, he'll send that to you. And it's we call it Navy SEAL breathing because the Navy SEALs did the research behind it to prove the actual physiological benefits of it. Oh, that's my timer. I'll have to stop in a minute. To prove the physiological benefits of it. Now, one of the key things it does, on top of all the other things that in this little handout you can read about, what it does is it clears cortisol and adrenaline out of your bloodstream. All right. And Judy mentioned that how in stage fright you get a surge of cortisol and adrenaline and it clears it out of your bloodstream. So in the moment, that's what you're going to want to do. You want to get that cortisol and adrenaline or a lot of it out of your bloodstream. A little bit's good. A little bit of anxiety under pressure can actually make you perform quite well. I rely on it, I have to say, but too much and you're blocking and you're stuck. So it will clear that cortisol and adrenaline out, and they've actually proven that in studies that they've done. So Navy SEAL breathing now has been adopted by a lot of athletes around the world. Elite athletes are doing it because the Navy SEALs do it just before they're about to jump off a bridge or out of a helicopter or dive to the bottom of the ocean so that they can get rid of that cortisol and adrenaline. It oxygenates their muscles so they're more coordinated, and it also enables them to think more clearly and quicker. They get faster responses. And of course, they've got to make quick decisions when they're doing that kind of stuff. So, and we talked about thoughts before as well. So it will actually help clear your thoughts. So I'm quite an advocate for both diaphragmatic breathing and Navy SEAL breathing. And again, it's the sort of thing you've got to practice every single day so that when you're in the spotlight, it can kick in. You don't have to go, oh, Lisa said I have to do Navy SEAL breathing and Lisa said I have to do this and that. It'll just kick in naturally for you. Now, one last little thing. So me being me reads all the research. So everything I've told you now, there's scientific studies to back that up and what have you. But I've taken it one step further just in working with so many people on a weekly basis who have a stutter, is that there's also evidence out there showing that cortisol and adrenaline are actually addictive. And your body will, when you're used to having a certain level of anxiety, particularly in certain situations, your body will, unbeknownst to you, go looking for the hit. So it'll go looking for the hit of cortisol and adrenaline. And it will look for situations that will justify giving you that hit. And so one of the things you're wanting to do is not associate cortisol and adrenaline, high levels of it, big hits of it, with particular situations. So if you have to speak regularly at a meeting at work, for example, you don't want that situation associated with a big hit of cortisol and adrenaline, because then your body will crave that and your body will kick in and naturally give you that when you find yourself in that situation. So again, you want to use the breathing so that when you are in a situation, you breathe it out to actually disassociate, if you like, the big hit of cortisol and adrenaline with that situation. So that's just a little path I'm going down at the moment with people I'm working with, is talking about not having that associated. But I've used up my time, so we'll move on.